All right, welcome everyone. Great to have all of you joining us today. We're going to hang out for just a minute or two to make sure that everyone can join and get settled in. We have some amazing guests, so be sure to grab a drink and a snack so you don't miss a thing. I'm coming to you from Bozeman, Montana, where it's been a pretty chilly start to May. It actually snowed yesterday, and honestly, I cannot say that I'm very happy about it. Marianne, it looks like you are in a very different situation. I know you're in Havasu. How are things there?
We got up to the triple digits last week, and it's absolutely blue skies and beautiful. Typical Havasu.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. We're still wearing down jackets and you're suntanning. So jealous. Erik, how's the East Coast?
It's good. It's a little cold, little rainy, but spring is finally sprung. So we have some green shoots at least. So
That's perfect. Yeah, I will say it is starting to green up here in Bozeman, so I guess I can't complain too much.
yeah.
All right, well, it's just past the hour, so I'm going to officially get us started. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Amy Arno, and I am the Director of Sales at XYPN. Today, I'm thrilled to host this event, Ask Me Anything, leaving a broker-dealer to launch an RIA with XYPN members Marianne Nolte and Erik Nero. I have just a few housekeeping items to go over. We have a few pre-submitted questions to start us off, but please feel free to ask us anything you're dying to hear about. Just use that Q&A module. You'll see that on the bottom right of your Zoom screen. We'll be sure to answer everything that you have for us. Also, when the webinar is over, you will see a survey pop up from Zoom. We would love to hear how we did, and also please include ideas for topics you would like to hear about in the future. There's lots out there, and we want to be sure to answer anything that you want to hear about. We host a free webinar every month, so next month, be sure to join us for Ask Me Anything to scale or not to scale your RIA, and that'll be featuring 2 XYPN members, so keep an eye on our events page to register for that. That will be a great one to hear about the evolution of firms, so we're also going to link in the chat for you to register. Finally, be sure to join us on May 7th for a great solution spotlight. What makes betterment for advisors better for planning-focused advisors? This is going to be a really informative session, so you won't want to miss this one. And guess what? You can also register for that in the chat. Last thing, we have a very exciting announcement. The XYPN Live is coming up shortly, kind of about less than 6 months away. That is going to be in Minneapolis in October 15th through the 17th. And if you're interested in attending, you can schedule a call with one of our XYPN success strategists. We've got a code for you for $50 off your XYPN Live pass. So be sure to connect with us and get that code. All right. Enough with the logistics. Let's get to the reason you all are here. So Marianne, why don't you start us off? Will you just tell us about your career in with the broker-dealer, where you came from, why you wanted to make the switch to owning your own RIA, and what things are like for you now?
Okay. My name's Marianne Nolte. My firm is Imagine Financial Services. I'm out here in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. I was a career changer. I had my own business for 30 years, totally unrelated field. And because of my parents' health, I came into this industry and ended up with a passion for planning. So after 30 years of being self-employed, I decided to join a small boutique firm back in San Diego. I was with them for 5 years, and so 5 years of employment in my life. And at the end of that 5 years, I realized it was time to go and time to do my own thing. And because I've always been a business owner, that was not a scary leap for me. So that part was easy. And I know that that can be frightening for a lot of people to, oh my gosh, you're responsible for yourself now. That part was not scary. It was all of the compliance, logistics, and the being on an island, not having connections with people. That was a little bit uncomfortable, but I tell you what, XY just helped me slide into the role without any problem because I had that support. And one of the neatest things about joining XYPN was that I initially got on a cohorts call. I think it was through one of Arlene Moss's workshops. And we've got a cohort group of 7 of us that still meet every Monday. And we joined together during COVID. I launched I joined XYPN in June, and I actually got my RIA registered in October of 2020. So it was an exciting journey, and that's about it right there.
Oh my gosh, it's coming up on your 4-year anniversary.
Yep.
That is great. Perfect. All right, Erik, how about you?
Sure. So my name is Erik Nero. My firm is First Step Wealth Planning. I'm in my 3rd year. So I was approved and launched through XYPN in January of 2022. I'm kind of a career financial advisor. I've been in it for 25 years, mainly for large broker dealers. I also had a short stint with a boutique investment management firm with a firm that's local to me. So I've seen a lot of different things throughout the industry. As far as clients, I have about 13 ongoing clients right now, about a little over $20 million. Although I'm flat fee, AUM doesn't really matter, but I still custody assets for clients that want investment management. Revenue I think is going to come in at this year about 150 in year 3. So I launched because of COVID, quite frankly. So the broker dealer I was with, this was coming back from my institutional stint. And so I didn't have any clients. I left to go institutional, went out of private wealth, but I had maintained contact with a number of people who I really love and loved working with during that period of time. And so the broker dealer I came in through was gracious enough to give me a seat, but then COVID happened and then there was no resources. So I didn't really see why I should give up 70 cents of every revenue dollar for no real estate, no backup, no support, no nothing. And then also I think it really just came down to, which I knew from day one, is that it didn't really match my value system and what it is that I wanted to do and how it is that I wanted to help clients. And I wanted to really do what I wanted to do from a marketing perspective, which was almost impossible where I was before. So it's been an exciting 3 years. So I didn't have the entrepreneurial background. So yeah, I was scared of everything. So it's been a vertical learning curve over the last 2 and change years. But the growth as a result of it, both professionally and personally, I would never be where I am today if I hadn't have done what it is that I did, 2.5 years ago. And I think XYPN has just been so helpful with respect to all of the resources that I haven't even really scratched the surface with, but what I have used has been instrumental with respect to getting me to where I am now.
Perfect. No, that's really helpful. So I think a big thing that people get curious about is what can you start doing while you're still working? So maybe we can talk about that transition period of like, when did you start to think about leaving your firm, launching your own RIA? Did you join XYPN and start working on stuff? Did you fully leave and then start? What are some of the pieces that you can start to put together while you're still bringing in that lovely little salary? So Erik, do you want to talk us through that?
Sure. So for me, it was a little over a year. I'd made the decision. Like I said, COVID really had a lot to do with that. And I was just getting very, very tired of how the firm operated. I just couldn't tolerate the culture any longer. And so I had been listening to, XYPN radio and the Success podcast and really getting a lot of information from other people who had done that. So I really took my time because I wanted to make sure I did it right. And I wanted to make sure that I'd have as smooth a transition with as little as a hiccup as possible. So yeah, I would say December of January 21 is when I really started to just ask more questions and see what it was going to take, and then come up with a strategy as to how I could make the transition as seamless for my clients and as seamless for me as well, and lining up the resources that I thought I would need to make sure I could make that experience as comfortable and mildly intrusive for my clients.
Great. No, that's really helpful. And so you stayed with your company this isn't just about XYPN for anyone that's like going to be working on initial registration. So you stayed at your company and started working on initial registration while you were there.
I did. In fact, I established my LLC, my single member LLC, in September of that year. And I actually joined XYPM in November of 21, after having numbers of conversations with all of the folks at XYPN about, all right, when should I do this, so on and so forth, and getting guidance from them as to, given what I wanted to accomplish, what was the best path to make sure that I could do that.
And so obviously not telling your firm that this was your plan.
No,
So at
no,
what point did
yeah.
you tell your firm, when the U4 was filed, or how did that like separation part look?
Yeah, right on the same day that the U4 was filed. So I was lucky enough where the state of New York approved my RIA on a Friday, and that was it. I sent an email since we were still remote. So I said, okay, this is my notice, and that was it.
Great. So the state of New York, did they approve it the same day your U4 was filed, or like what was the amount of time that you
in working with
couldn't do
XY
business?
Compliance, they had kind of sent everything that they needed to New York in early December, just to see if there was anything that was going to be necessary. Nothing was. They got around to it, and they, compliance, XYPM compliance group reached out to me and said, "Hey, this all looks good." And so January 14th, I think it was, if I remember correctly, everything went through, and that was my go live date. And I said, okay,
cool.
Thanks, but leaving.
And how long in total, last compliance question, how long in total did it take from start to finish of working with XYPN to when you were approved by New York?
I would say 2.5 months. I was, I really got into it in November because I didn't know anything. I mean, I know a little bit now, but I didn't know anything then. And so I was really just trying to get all of that right. So, 9-10 weeks, which I thought was really, really fast. So
that's great. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, Marianne, let's talk about your transition. Like, how long was this on your mind? When did you start with XYPN? When did you start the actual registration process? Talk us through some of these nuts and bolts.
Okay. In 2019, January 1st, 2019, I decided I was going to start my own firm, but I was staying at the broker dealer. So I put my LLC together at that time, and I was trying to fit my way of doing business into what they were forcing on me, and it wasn't a good fit. And so in 2020, I ended up getting my CFP on the last day of the March series, March 13th, Friday the 13th. And then they cut the rest of the group off from getting their CFPs that's go around. So with that, I had that confidence to say, okay, this is not a good fit over here at BD World. And I, like Erik, I've been a big fan of XYPN, Michael Kitsis, the whole spiel for years. And I had talked with a fella named Caleb Paddock on, I had reached out to him about an online estate planning group. I had seen some posts from him on LinkedIn. And so I messaged through his website, and he picked up the phone and called me. And he said, you know what, from what we're talking about here and what you're doing, you really need to reach out to XYPN. He said, that was the best thing I ever did, and it's going to benefit you with the types of things that we were talking about. So after that phone call, I literally went to XYPN and I started my paperwork. I'm one of those rip the Band-Aid off people. You cannot wait for everything to be perfect, because nothing will ever be perfect. And so I charge forward when I see something that's right for me, then I know it's the right fit. And I knew that my broker dealer situation was not the right fit. And so I just charged forward. I believe I met with XYPN in June, And October 13th, 13 is my lucky number, I guess. October 13th, I got my RIA approved and I submitted my U4, and my broker dealer said, thank you so much, but you no longer exist. And that was just fine with me because I was already up and running. And that's about it. Yeah, it was just, I kept on plugging along, and for me, it was a great opportunity with my clients because I love to have a reason to reach out to them and to communicate. And so it was exciting to say, hey, this is what I'm doing. They've always been very supportive of me because I'm very supportive of them. And they know I'm passionate about my business. So none of my clients were, flapped by this at all. And so I made the merge over to TD, and I'm kind of a machine. If I've got something that I need to do, I just check the boxes, and the transition to TD was pretty harmless. And it felt right when we landed, and we just have plugged along together. My clients and I have plugged along together since then.
That was perfect. And so just to clarify, did you get registered in Arizona?
Yes, I
Okay.
actually originally was registered in California in
Okay.
2020. And so just in September, when we moved out
Yep.
here, that's when I got my Arizona registration. And Crystal over at Compliance is just ace of the base, and she makes everything easy for me. So I'm very appreciative of the compliance department.
Absolutely. So in 2020 in California, if I heard you right, it took from like June to October to get registered.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
COVID was going on. And so
Yeah,
like
sure.
everything was slow motion, and
Yeah.
every client out there, prospect, I should say, every prospect out there was thinking about the money issues that impacted them because of COVID. So it was just this really, I think about how some people came into the industry in 2007 when everything was rosy, and then bam, the whole world, came into this big 2008, 2009 issue with the market. And was it hard for those advisors? Probably. But was it an opportunity? Absolutely. Again, it's just that conversation with your clients. It may not be that you're delivering the best information, but you're delivering information to them. And that's what they ask for, is that you just stay in communication and hold their hand. So I think that 2020 was really an opportune time to come over as an RIA.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about client transition, because you had mentioned that once you were up and running, Marianne, you reconnected with clients and they were not flapped by you making this change. So did either of you have a non-compete, non-solicit, something like that? How did you contend with that? And then what does it look like to transition clients if you can, and how do you kind of start up again with that relationship? So Marianne, while we got you want to talk us through that?
All righty. So I did not have a non-compete, which, I'm really lucky. So I don't have much of a story there.
Sure.
And the transition itself, like I said, I just turned into a machine and I started doing paperwork, and I did not have an assistant. I still don't have an assistant. And so it was a whole lot of manual paperwork, and everything was not digital at the time because the whole 2020 COVID had not yet created an all digital platform. I am on Altruist as well as Schwab, and I'm so thankful that both of them have created a digital world for us. It's a really big change. I'd like to say I have a lot of memories of what that transition was like, but I don't. I just had a job to do, and I just rolled up my sleeves and started cranking out my spreadsheets. And nerd that we all are as financial advisors, yes, I had a spreadsheet and I tracked what was going on, and this one's done, and I just stuck with it until it was complete. and I didn't
Yeah.
lose clients because of it. And that was a wonderful situation.
That's great. One more quick question on this. I do get this question a lot for folks that have not done their own account transitions or account openings. For learning that skill, is that something you already had? Did you learn that through Schwab or Altruist? Like, do they offer some training on that? How do you figure that part out?
Oh gosh. So as a business owner, I have always had that kind of clerical skill set.
Mhm.
So I had done paperwork myself as an advisor. I had worked as an administrative assistant in the boutique firm as well. And so that was not difficult for me. It was just more paperwork, not a big deal.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, Erik, we're back to, did you have a non-compete, non-solicit? How did you manage that? And what does it look like to transition clients when you launch your own firm?
So yes, I did have a non-compete.
Oh.
So yes, I knew that heading, because you have to sign it before you even get a seat there, right? But I would say to anybody listening, it really depends on your circumstances and situations. So what I very carefully looked at was the enforceability of that. And I know that there are firms out there that will help look through and do the legal aspect. I chose not to do that simply because I had a fairly simplistic, only about a dozen or so people that I had known from my prior private wealth management life. And so, in my opinion, that I didn't use any resources of the firm I was with to get those clients. So I don't think that they could have made a true claim that, or those are our clients just because you signed this piece of paper. So that was a risk I was willing to take. Because what happens is, like, as soon as I left, you get a temporary restraining order put on you, and they look to enforce that gag order basically on you. What I did instead is I talked to every single one of my clients months in advance to let them know, which is a big no-no, right? This is not something that you do. I was with a non-protocol firm, but I was in the midst of doing things for my clients or retirees and soon to be retirees. And I couldn't disrupt certain aspects of the process. Plus, I didn't want there to be some type of surprise because I've been in this game long enough with a lot of broker dealers, and I know exactly what's going to be said when those other phone calls go out by the brokers who end up kind of getting these new accounts assigned to them. So I didn't want any of that confusion. I wanted them to know exactly what was going to happen and when it was going to happen. And so I told them, I said, hey, January sometime is when this is happening. I use Schwab because by the time I came to XYPN, Schwab was the platform. I have nothing but good things to say about Schwab. During my tenure in private wealth, I've never had like a team or assistant, so I'm used to doing all of that administrative work. I was lucky enough to have DocuSign and everything else at that point, but it still took a lot of time. So I think kind of looking at it from Genesis to where it is that I was kind of after everything landed, I would say I reached out to clients shortly after I established my LLC, which was September, October of 21, and let them know of my intentions and what's going to be happening. And they all came with me after years of me not being around. I was with an institutional firm. These people, were not necessarily all that thrilled with where it is that they were at the time and said, okay, I'm willing to do that. So it was just a very frank conversation. Here's what I'm doing and why. And my reason was the firm that I'm at just doesn't match my values. And they're not allowing me to serve you in the way that I know you need to be served because they just want me to crank out product. And if I don't, then I don't have a seat there and you're going to be dealing with somebody else anyway. So everybody understood that. And we're actually supportive of me going into this endeavor and really we're excited for me and for them to move into this endeavor where they're not necessarily with a large firm because not a single one of them cared about the brand that I was with at the time. Not one. So that's my circumstances. I think anybody else in that spot has to really do an assessment to say, how long have you been there? What resources of the firm did you honestly use to acquire those clients? If you've been there for any period of time, it's likely you'll probably have inherited clients because people leave those firms all the time, especially new people, and accounts get reassigned and all of that kind of stuff. Those are technically, even though you may have a relationship with those people, it's a different entity than somebody that you brought in with you, right? That didn't have any relationship or any access to the resources that you have at that firm prior to your conversation with them. So I did that. I made that decision to take that risk. Everybody knew what was going on. Schwab was fantastic. They actually gave me a spreadsheet and said, all right, here's all the stuff that we would need to help put together these transition packages for you.
Wow. That's
And
awesome.
so within a week of my registration, all of the digital DocuSign packages for everything that needed to happen were sent out.
Hey,
Done.
shout out Schwab. That's awesome.
Yeah, done. So that made it a lot easier. And I would say everybody, so that was January. People started to come in February, and by the end of March, everybody was over. But it was a lot of work. Same thing to Marianne. You know, it was every day going through, here's the DocuSign. Okay. It was, you know, at that point, it was a new technology for a lot of people. So just getting used to all of that and then getting up and running and then everything moving over, landing in the appropriate place, and then being able to use the resources so they could view everything the way that they had. So I was careful about being able to craft an experience utilizing, you know, software that would be able to give them the view that they were used to when it came to their assets. So like I said, you know, highly situational, look at your situation, consult somebody who is a legal expert with respect to your non-compete agreements, especially for like the big brokerage firm, because I was with a big brokerage firm. They are going to try to scare you. You know, I got legal letters, I got, you know, threatening letters from attorneys, but you have to know your rights. And I just ignored them because they had no leg to stand on. I didn't do anything wrong. My clients chose to move. And so they did. All of the ones that I really wanted. I didn't tell everyone, right? So there were some people that I was like, you know what, when I'm gone, that's it. I just, you know, I thought it was going to work out when I brought them on, but then I kind of found out what kind of person they were, and it's fine. So I got everybody that I really wanted to work with to come with me. And it was a lot of time. I do remember it because it was very long days, meetings back to back to back to back. And it was all administrative. And so that was really the first 2 to 3 months of getting on board and making sure everything landed appropriately.
Right. No, that's perfect. So I'm going to drop a link for folks who maybe don't share Erik's confidence about their rights. If you do want to talk to a lawyer, we have a referral. His name's Chris Stanley. You can schedule a consultation with him and then see if his services would be a good fit to have him help you review your employment documents and just figure out what this transition could look like legally for you. Then put that in there. Another thing I'm going to drop real quick is a blog that we wrote on broker protocol. I think this is really helpful for people thinking about this transition. So I'm going to put that in the Zoom as well. I want to answer a real quick question that we had in the Q&A. So someone asked, is that the day you must notify your employer, the day that your U4 is approved? This is a nuanced answer. Kendra, I see that you're on the call, so correct me in the chat if I get this wrong. She's on the compliance team. So it's going to vary by state what this will look like for you. So in general, when you start the initial registration process, one of the things that you'll have to do is register your entity with your state, and that is public information. So it could depend on your firm with like how much money they have to spend on mitigating this kind of transitions, that they could be looking for, you know, you as a registered agent. So you do have to be aware of that. Seems unlikely, but you just never know. There are firms that do have the kind of budgets to be looking for that. For many states, as you're working through initial registration paperwork, we can submit the ADV and the other documents that are required by the state before your U4 is submitted. So the state can do their initial review of the majority of the documents, and then file the U4 after that. And so it does shorten the time frame, not to 0. There still will probably be at least a few weeks in between when your U4 is filed and when you are approved. So the U4 is the triggering event to your employer because they need to file a U5. So that is for most folks when they notify their employer is when that U4 has been submitted. So certainly if you want us to talk to you about your state individually, then, Kendra's going to help us out in here. She said submission of the form U4 may notify your current firm of your pending application elsewhere. Some states will perform the regulatory review without the U4, and others will require the U4 to be submitted before the regulatory review will begin. So if you do have a question individually about your state, connect with someone on the sales team and we can get your questions answered. So sorry to derail us on that. Just wanted to give him a good answer. I know this is a big concern for folks. Okay, so we've got our firm registered. We brought our clients over. One of the things I want to talk about is your runway for when you started. So how did you make this decision in terms of how much money did you set aside? And then how did you answer some of the big questions like health insurance, some of those other pieces? So Marianne, do you want to talk us through that?
Sure. I did have money set aside, and it's funny, when I joined the little boutique firm, the founder of that firm, I started as an administrative assistant there, and I was sitting in my office one day about a month after I had started, and he walked in and he said, "So you're not going to be sitting back in this office for very long, are you?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well, I can tell that you want to do this. You're gonna eventually go off on your own." I said, "Oh, absolutely." And he goes, "Well, you stay with me for 2 years and I will get you registered." And so I ended up staying with him for 5 years. And I guess I'm just kind of trying to set the stage here, but oh, shoot, where was your original question?
So what is the runway that you felt like you needed in terms of savings, and how did you solve for some of the big questions like what I do about, my 401k or health insurance, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So my husband, is actually, he's got fabulous health insurance. So that was never a problem for me. And I didn't get hung up on the little things, I think is part of it. I knew that a change was in order. I knew that things would fall into place, and I had enough savings to squeak myself by for a period of time. So I just didn't let that become an issue. I wish I had a better answer than that. Again, I'm just that charge in and do it kind of person. I didn't let myself overthink and go crazy with teeny tiny numbers. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
And was your husband still working? Maybe I think that is helpful for folks too, to know, like, did you have a spouse that was working? Did you have a side hustle? Was there anything else you did to kind of make it through like the initial transition?
He works, and I've always funded my own life.
Sure. Great.
So I have not been married and taken care of. I've been
Right.
married and
Absolutely.
doing my own thing.
Sure.
And so like I said, I had the money set aside to do it. I had thought about it a couple of years before I did it. And then I did start my own LLC the year before I launched. And so I had already put my resources in place, and just crossed my fingers and told myself I was going to just do it. And I did.
Okay. Perfect. Hey, Erik, how about you? What did your runway look like, and how did you answer some of those big questions about entrepreneurship?
Sure. Well, I'll start with what I would suggest to people, and then I'll
Okay.
tell you my story. So I would suggest, certainly, when it comes to healthcare, health insurance, savings, make sure that you have some runway. I would say at least 2 to 3 years of maybe savings, especially if you're starting brand new. No clients, no leads, no prospects. It's just going to take time to get moving. If you have, if you're on this call, you probably have some clients to figure out who's likely to come over and what kind of, do you have an AUM firm? Do you have a flat fee firm? Like, try to project where your revenue is going to come in and how that's going to cover costs. XYPN is a great value, but it's a monthly cost, right? You need to know to keep up with that. And so when I launched, I guess it gets into my story, which heck, I'll just share. So when I was with the boutique investment management firm, I was a partner. I was doing very, very well. I have 3 children, one who was graduating college in 2 weeks, one who was a freshman in college, and one who was in middle school still. And so about 5.5, 6 years ago is when that all ended for me. The boutique firm, active management, saw AUM kind of walk out the door, and I was kind of first out. which was actually good because I got 85 cents back on my partnership dollars. But I saw my income go to zero. Now my wife works, but not in a capacity that provides health insurance or anything like that. So step one for me was, all right, where do I go? What do I do? What's the next step for me? And serendipity being what it is, people actually started reaching out to me about a month or two after that event happened. And I was like, well, I have no idea what I'm going to do. Like, just untethered in space, floating in the blackness, no idea what to do. And so the universe basically said, okay, here's some people that are interested in still working with you as far as private wealth is concerned. And the more I heard from them, the more I'm like, you know what? I remember so-and-so. And I just kind of in my phone was like, all right, it's been like 4 or 5 years since I spoke to these people. Would they be interested too? And what I found out was like, yeah, there was a bunch of them that were like, yeah, let's get together. Let's grab coffee. Let's talk about, yeah, that sounds exciting. Where are you going to be? Well, I don't know yet, but here, here's what I'm thinking of doing. The runway aspect of this, the point of this whole thing is I had to expend a lot of my personal resources in that transition phase. And I'm, kind of still in that phase. So really in January of 2014, I spent my last dollar on my last day buying that XYPN membership. That was it. It was all there was. Done. Over. And so that's why it was so critical that I had this transition move quickly, which it did. That's why I reached out to my clients months in advance to let them know this is happening, because I wanted to know exactly what was going to happen, because otherwise I would have died. And, I wouldn't have been able to support anybody. So that made it the plan viable. I had revenue up and running, like month one, ready to go. I had some deferred comp that I was due, which helped a little bit, not a whole lot, but at least get me through that February of that year. And then March, everything kind of kicked on. And then the revenue that I was bringing in at the prior firm, I had to give up a whole heck of a lot of it. Now it was just a lot less because I didn't have as much overhead and stuff. So I did see a lift off of that. But to this day, I'm still working on kind of getting back to where my life used to be before that huge change. And so in the first year, I went on the exchange for health insurance because I had to.
Okay.
My wife doesn't have the option for health insurance. She's a speech pathologist and works with an agency that doesn't provide their employees that. What I found out that was very, very expensive to cover for a family. And so by the end of 2022, I picked up a side hustle where I can get health insurance and also some additional income. So I've got the health insurance thing kind of covered, but my time is at more of as a premium because I'm effectively working 2 full-time jobs. One to be able to get insurance, the other to build my business. And so I'm grateful for what it is that I have. But that's why I'm just trying to get as much momentum behind getting more ongoing clients for my practice as I possibly can. So health insurance is a big one. If you are the person in your household that is taking advantage of those benefits, look at that W-2 from the prior year, look at that box 12, and that's what you're going to pay plus a little bit more. If you're going to go on COBRA or go to the ACA exchange of your state and figure out what a plan for you or your family is going to cost for the benefits that you really need. And it's not cheap. So that was a big thing for me in being able to kind of keep my dream alive, which it has. But yeah, I would suggest don't do it my way. Don't look at me as the example of like what not to do, right? Because if I'm completely honest, I love what I'm doing. I love my clients, but putting 1 through college, now 2 through college and everything else. I've got a big row to hoe when it comes to getting back to where it is that I need to be. And so that puts a lot more pressure on me for my RIA to be where it is that it needs to be. For a man who's almost 49 years old, I don't have another 25 years of building, after I've spent my 401k, right? This business needs to be able to provide me the savings necessary to make up and keep me on my plan for where I need to be. So if you have runway and you can afford to kind of stash away as much as you can, and you can do that, perfect. 2 to 3 years. If you have clients can move, just do the math. How many are going to move? What's the revenue I'm going to get? What revenue model are you going to run? and then just work your budget from there. XYPN has tons of different things that you can use to budget yourself in that first year. Use them. And I think you probably get yourself in a good ballpark as to where it is you need to be.
Absolutely. No, that's really helpful. We do have a first year budget template that folks can download. So we'll put that in the chat. It's free. So I think that's a good place to start. And just being honest with yourself about what it's actually going to cost for sure. Marianne, did you have something for us?
I do. You know, when you leave a broker dealer, you think that you have a hard time realizing what your value is. And setting your fees is one of the biggest issues when you launch on your own. And everybody tends to undercut themselves and discount. And that is not the key to success. It really is not. You have to know that you are worth what you're asking. And then you need to tack even a couple extra bucks on it on top of that. Don't undercut yourself, because I see that over and over again when people are starting and they're like, well, you know, I need to get some clients and da, 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 da. Don't get too many clients that aren't paying you. You have got to make sure that you hold true to yourself and you charge what you're worth. And your clients will pay, and they will be so thankful that you're there for them. And so just don't be afraid. The fees are really, really critical in the first couple of years. And I would guess that XYPN has got statistics on the fact that people start down here with their fees, and within 2 or 3 years, they're up here with their fees. So just go ahead and get up here right away. You know, don't dink around.
Yes,
I totally
the
agree,
number one
Marianne.
thing.
Yeah. And I'm guilty as charged. Like even with 25 years in, like I'm moving from an AUM model, which has been my entire career, to a flat fee model. And I think it's a lot of it is just the pressure of, okay, I need, you know, I just need some revenue. So,
Right.
but early on the first year, I was doing like projects for like $500.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
just
yes.
nonsense.
Yeah.
Nonsense, absolute nonsense. So now, and I was just I was doing like whatever the client wanted, and I was like wearing every hat there was, and it was driving me nuts. And it's just not worth it. So I agree with you entirely. For those of you who have not launched yet and you have that tug to do it, I can tell you it's not worth it. You're going to have sleepless nights, because I did, and it's going to really affect your kind of like, you're gonna start asking yourself, did I do the right thing? Right? Because I asked myself all the time, did I do the right thing? And what is my value? Right? I got to the point where my confidence was so low, was like, well, what am I actually doing? Right? Now I tell everybody, you have to do a plan. Can't help you. You don't want to do a plan? I can't help you. Yep. And then for the plan right now, what I charge right now, which I think is the sweet spot, because nobody has said no, maybe I should bump it up a little bit more, is $2,400. And then I move to an ongoing fee, which usually starts at like, you know, $850 a month, because I work with people who are retirees and they typically have 7 figures or more worth of assets. So, okay, nobody blinks an eye at this point. So it's knowing your value and knowing, and that's maybe the hard thing. If maybe you haven't been in the industry long enough or haven't worked maybe with enough clients, there's that imposter syndrome. I'll tell you right now, I've been doing it for 25 years. I still have imposter syndrome, right? But I've recognized that our clients don't need us to know everything. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the push and pull is, I think, my commentary and opinion about social media certainly is going to come through with this comment, but with all of the noise that is just piped through LinkedIn and all these social media about, like, every advisor wants to out advice the next advisor. Like, I'm the smarter advisor. I'll tell you right now, if that's your game plan as you're looking to launch and you're just going to be the smartest person in the room, you're going to be the loneliest person in the room, right? You have to care about the people. It's all about the relationships. And if you understand what's important to those people as human beings, you can help them better with their money. And that's what they're going to pay for. It's like that stupid cliche. People, you know, don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, right? So it comes down to the why story. And if you can articulate that and then just confidently say, yeah, you want that? Here's what it's going to cost. Mm-hmm. Even all right, depending upon where you're from, even if it's more than the advisory firm down the street from you, you just have to tell the story in a way that provides confidence in the fact that those people are going to get what it is that they're looking for, which is they want to be cared for. They don't want to be told what their numbers look like up down sideways. They
Right.
want to know, is what I'm doing okay? Am I going to make it? Like, am I missing something? That anxiety is real. And so if you're working with people maybe early stage, that's a totally different animal, but it's still the same level of anxiety. They just have anxiety over different things versus somebody who's 65 and like, all right, I'm not working anymore. What's my place in the world? I've got a couple $1 million and I don't know if I can spend any of it because I'm so used to putting money in. I hate taking money out. That's bad. What do I do?
Yep.
So focus on who you're going to focus on. And that changes too.
Mhm.
I thought, quite frankly, I was going to work with people like second generation who are going to put their kids through college because my kids are going through college. What I found out from doing it a number of times, I'm like, oh my God, I can't stand doing this. I hate talking about it. I'm like, and when my kids are out of school, I never want to think about college ever again. Right. So, but I did it. Right. I did some plans for people. And as I just recognized that I didn't like it. All right. But I really like talking to people about how it is that they can take money out of their savings in a way that's going to give them the opportunity to feel the way they want when they retire. And there's value for that. If you do it right, right? You have to be able to say, this is my value. I'm going to guide you through these tough decisions. And I don't have every answer because nobody does. But when I need to figure it out, I got a network of people that we can help. We'll get to the answer together. And it takes a lot of pressure off me to say that to somebody that I don't have every answer, but ask your question and we'll figure it out. And that's what you're paying for. So.
Yes. No, I really appreciate that. And I think what you're saying too is that the way that you communicate your value is going to change too for your clients. I think specifically for people that maybe came from a big broker dealer, have a couple in mind, that what they offered is going to be very different than what they offer now as an independent firm owner. So practice, conveying that value in a way that's going to mean something to the clients that you work with, because it will be different now, which is what you wanted.
I think the word that you said there, Amy, is practice, rehearse.
Yeah.
I'm a planner and a preparer, to a fault, right? And I have a marketing coach. He's like, you think too much about this stuff, right? And guilty. But I practice what I'm going to say. I practice going through the tools I use because for me, that gives me confidence. For me, I know there's others, and I've worked with so many people in this industry that they just have confidence like out of nowhere, and they can just kind of do it. And even when they're wrong, they sound right, and people do it. So, but for me, I like to rehearse. In fact, I heard a great story. The firm I was with, one of the senior leaders of that firm in a big metro area was talking about one of their advisory teams actually worked and has Jerry Seinfeld as a client. So Jerry Seinfeld actually did like a private screening of a new segment of stand-up to this group of this office in New York City. And so this person was there. And so he was working on new material. And so, they went through it, had a great time, perfect evening. I mean, who gets to do that, right? I mean, you're in a small room with Jerry Seinfeld listening to new stuff from Jerry Seinfeld. I mean, like, he died and gone to heaven. But he asked Jerry specifically, like, how many times have you gone through that routine? And instantaneously, he said, that was my 151st time. It sounds good and it sounds funny because he rehearses it over and over and over again. I think financial advisors, and this is what I look to do as well, need that same level of rehearsal because we're all performing in a certain way, right? When it comes to clients. And so we have to perform in a way that we're very sensitive to the feedback we're getting non-verbally from our audience, right? And if we're good at picking up those nonverbals and we're good enough and practiced enough about what our routine looks like, we can fit the different activities we need to what they're giving us in those nonverbals and be able to give them the confidence that ultimately they're looking for, which defines our value, which you can't put a number on, right? Because it's going to be a number that's different for me, that's different for Marianne, that's different than any other financial advisor. But I think that's probably the hardest thing. It took me years to figure that out because probably for the first 15, take that back, first 22 years of my career, right? It was probably just like, all right, know all this information, know all these functions, and these functions are going to help people live better lives. Well, the function's the last thing. The function is only there just to get something done. It's what's important about that to you. And then how do we get you to that place? And then the functions take care of themselves. And with AI coming, I think all the functions are going to be available to anybody everywhere. So I'll get off my soapbox at this point.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we don't have time to bring up AI today.
No.
There's only 10 minutes left.
No.
Be careful. No, I really appreciate all of that, Erik. Thank you so much. We have a couple of questions I want to make sure we get to. So we did have a question about comparing compliance at a broker-dealer versus what you're experiencing now. So do you outsource compliance? Do you use XYPN? How do you manage the compliance tasks you need to complete every month, quarter, and year? Marianne, will you kick us off?
Sure. I actually really liked my compliance department at the broker-dealer. The two people that I worked with were really awesome. And they were so encouraging when they did finally get that I'm leaving phone call. And so I do appreciate that a lot. But XYPN has just knocked it out of the park. I mean, everybody on the compliance team has made everything so smooth for me. And templating, everything's templated. You can change things so that it's in your own voice, but that you're staying within the guardrails of what you're trying to accomplish on whatever it is, your ADV formulation, your client agreement, etc. It's already been crafted. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You have to just fill it in so that it fits you and your business. So that part's been awesome. What was the rest of your question?
So how do you manage it? So do you use like a smart RIA? How much time are you spending on compliance every month? What does it look like for you?
Yeah, I do use Smart RIA. I keep it up to date at the beginning of each month. It drives me insane because every Monday I get that reminder and I don't want to see it. So I know that I do it at the beginning of the month and then I can just delete for the rest of that month. I don't have to think about it again until the beginning of next month. So that's just my own personal habit. And yeah, I haven't been afraid of the compliance because it's been so well supported by XYPN. It really has. And I think that the reason I'm talking about templating is along the lines of what Erik was saying, is that you have to practice. So if you have everything in your business templated, whether it's all of your compliance documents or it's how you hold your surge meetings for client reviews, which I just did in the month of March, and I was so glad I had practiced, and I realized that I had created this awesome compliance tracking mechanism of my March reviews, so that when I get audited, oh, how did my reviews go? Oh, here you go. And I've got my nice little stack of information, digital stack, of course. But it's all right there, and I can just go right to it. And I know that the auditors are going to be quite happy with that. So take advantage of thinking through what your presentation is and then creating a template for yourself. Utilize as many as you can as an outline that are on XYPN, but just get everything all templated in your business. And then it becomes very automated. Even though it's very personal, it's very automated at the same time. You're crafting it for your client personally, but you have this underlying foundational support of the template.
That's great. And stay on top of it, I'm hearing
Oh,
too, because it will pile up.
Absolutely. Yeah, don't let your bookkeeping, do not let your bookkeeping go astray. Get your QuickBooks or Wave or whatever, and make sure you stay on top of that on a monthly basis. That is done in my office by the 6th of the month. And I will not stray from that, because it's so easy to be focusing on your clients' numbers that you kind of, you would like to not deal with all of the pettiness of your own bookkeeping, but don't go there, because that will be a zinger from the auditors.
Bookkeeping and compliance. Got
Yes,
it.
absolutely.
Erik, how about you? What's your experience of managing compliance been like?
Yeah, I think, I echo a lot of the things that Marianne said. Bookkeeping, I use XYPN books for that, just because I don't have time. and I'm willing to pay to get that all done. I would consider it's a work in progress. It's a vertical learning curve. I'm still on a parabolic learning curve when it comes to compliance. I am outstandingly grateful for the templating, that the client agreement, and working with XY Compliance about, right, here's what I want to offer, and then the ADV, every single year. I don't have to really worry about that. I do use Smart RIA. I do keep on top of it. I always feel a bit insecure, right? Am I doing it right? Because I've never been a chief compliance officer before, right? So I try to keep as good records as I can. I use Wealthbox as my CRM through the XYPN stack. And so there's a lot of things on there that satisfy risk questionnaires. And my process is I write summary emails on every single meeting I have with clients and keep that in the database. So everything that we've talked about or agreed to, I can pull up. Is it as organized as it should be? I don't know, probably could always be better. But can I find it if an auditor's sitting right next to me and says, well, give me what you know about this person? Yeah, it'll just take me a little bit of time to do it. Plus I have everything backed up on drives and everything else like that. So no, I'm not going to say I'm rocking it when it comes to compliance, but I think I'm doing a good enough job for the firm that I have, for the clients that I work with, that whenever the audit, I have not yet been audited, but whenever that happens, nobody goes through an audit without some finding. That's what they're there to do, right? But at the end of the day, I think the resources like Smart RIA keep everything organized and you on top of things. And I think to Marianne's point, just keeping up with it, right? Don't letting it get like a month, 6 weeks old, because then it's just a lot of time. I don't like doing it either, but it has to be done. And it's good to be like, all right, check your client billing, check your advertising, things that you're doing, or marketing things that you're doing. If it's just you, which it is just me, yeah, pull from XYPN archive 250 of your emails and just see how it works, right? Those are all things that are tasks that come up with Smart RIA. And it's all right there in front of you. So all you have to do is really just act on it. So it's like spoon feeding in a way.
Yeah.
And I love that, because I wouldn't have even known that I got to check my archiving system. Okay, well, there's a reminder every month I have to check my email archiving system. Okay, does it work? Great, done. Check. Move on.
That's great. No, that's super helpful. Really quick, I was trying to say we were going to have time to get to marketing, so I've been saving this one. But what is your experience with financial advisor agencies that guarantee a certain number of exclusive qualified leads via social media advertising? Have either of you used that, Marianne? Yes or no?
No.
No. Erik, yes or no?
Garbage.
Okay, garbage. Well, there you go. Decisive. Yeah, I'm just from the amount of time I've spent, like a VIP Facebook group, all the feedback I've seen in there about this kind of stuff is that none of it is worthwhile. So very anecdotal, but
they appeal to our, hey, we all need and want to grow. And it sounds wonderful, but in practice, it's garbage. It's absolute garbage. And there's just no substitute for the hard work of forging relationships with people. There really isn't. Some people, there's plenty of people on the Success podcast that have been absolutely outstanding with their marketing and getting introductions and establishing relationships with people. And it's great to hear how they're doing it. Me and my journey, marketing is not my strong point. All right. I'm really good with my clients, but doing some type of social media, which I've kind of dipped my toe into. I hate social media. So I can't be expected to perform well on social media if I detest it in the first place. So I just have to find a different way that is going to be consistent with where I feel comfortable, or where I feel as if I could be successful, versus the noise that is just, YouTube and everything else. So
so don't waste your money is what we're telling you.
No, there's a lot of siren songs. And a lot of them are just peddling a lot of, cookie cutter stuff that nobody's going to read. It has to come from you. People buy you. They're not going to buy a ghostwriter. They're not going to buy, the 16 posts that you put to your social media feed every single day. In fact, they're going to more likely ignore you, in my opinion.
Totally. Well,
people are out there that probably say, yeah, hey, I did it and I have a great business, and great. All right, that's your method. But I think for the vast majority of people that pay for those services, they're not getting the lift.
I hear you. Okay, last yes or no question. Would you leave your broker-dealer and start your firm again? Marianne, yes or no?
Yeah,
All day,
absolutely.
every day.
Uh-huh.
Eric, how about you?
In a heartbeat, yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you both so much. This was amazing. I hope everyone came away feeling good about this transition. If you want to learn more about XYPN, please schedule a call with one of our success strategists. We can talk through this with you on all the specifics of your situation. Don't forget to fill out that survey for us. Tell me how we did, what we can do better, and what you'd like to hear about next time. And Marianne and Eric, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you,
Thank
Amy.
you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. We'll see ya.